Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Yesshift News Desk edition. Taking a bit of time in between things to come on here, and I wanted to, talk a little bit about Chris Squire in this bit of time that I have. And there's actually an article that came out in commemoration of Chris. So this prog article, it's over at Louder Sound. The link is actually in the post description here, so you can check that out. And I'm just making sure that my sound is good because I know there was one time where uh, I was muted for a bit before realizing. But yeah, it looks like it's working well. And also wanted to remind people, it's of course, today being the 10th anniversary of Chris Squire's passing. um, Boy, I remember how shocked I was when I heard the news. We knew that Chris uh, was dealing with health issues, but even then, it was still a shock to learn the news. And after I learned it, I remember I called Dad and told him, and his reaction. He was shocked as well. He said, "Oh my god!" And it's just, um, I even had my brother text me, saying he was sorry that to hear that Chris passed because he knows how much Chris and Yes Music mean to me. And yeah, so can't believe it's 10 years. It was just after my first year at college over at UC Irvine. Um, yeah, it's hard to believe. But all that being said, uh, people have been paying tribute to Chris over the years. They still do. There's the Play for Chris annual celebration of him. Recently we had Miguel Falcao on the show to talk about Play for Chris 11. The deadline, as I think I mentioned before, was recently pushed to June 30th. So Dad is working on his submission, and I'm working on one as well. So my submission will involve singing. I used to be in a choir some years ago, and also just in general love singing along to my favorite songs. So I'm working on something. I was working on something earlier, um, and I'll have to see if there are any more touches I need to do with it to the point where I feel it's good enough to submit. So that'll be my project this weekend. Make sure it's in by the deadline. Um, Unless I think it's maybe not good enough, in which case I'd maybe record a words for Chris, perhaps. But we'll see what happens. I feel somewhat confident about this submission of mine, which I'm planning to send in. But yeah, go to miguelbase.com/play for Chris 11. Send in your submission if you haven't already. And looking forward to seeing what that next compilation of Chris Squire tributes will look like. And we'll have Miguel on the show again in August. We have really packed schedules on our end, not just with this show, but with other stuff, work related stuff. But we make it work. We make sure we get the people we can and do the topics we can. And yeah, so go to miguelbase.com for that. Now, as I mentioned, and later I'm also going to talk about this news about the remastered Alan White Ramshackled CD. But first, there's the Louder Sound article, which I alluded to earlier. And this is titled, um, it has to do with 30. Okay, so the headline for this is a lengthy headline. So it begins with the quote: "He was bedrock to the Yes sound, an incredibly creative player who has inspired so many. It's unlikely that we'll see his like again." And then after the quote, it says Chris Squire's greatest musical moments by bandmates, friends, and fans. And so there's this list of 30 different tracks featuring Chris Squire. If I remember correctly, they are all Yes tracks. Actually, no, there's a bit of Fish Out of Water on there too. And I think maybe Run with the Fox is on there. Yeah, Run with the Fox is on there as well. So this is a 3-page article, lists 30 songs, each from a different person talking about it. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I don't want this to sound too listy, but just some things that jumped out at me that I'll highlight a bit. It was nice seeing Lee Pomeroy, who's collaborated with Rick Wakeman and was with ARW. He cited Astral Traveler. That's a really great track there. And Peter Banks's favorite Yes track to perform as well. Tony K talks a bit about Yours Is No Disgrace. He even says that Bill Bruford liked to call it Your Nose Is a Disgrace. And he talks about coming up with a song with Steve Howe and how that went and how Chris was happy with it. And you have these people from other bands like Griffin, Tiger. I'm not even sure that I've ever heard of Tiger before. Amanda Lemon. Oliver Wakeman talks a bit about South Side of the Sky and how he's partial to the Live from Leon version. Of course, that being the version that he performed on. And yeah, Oliver always has great memories of Chris whenever he talks about him. There's Derek Schulman talking about Long Distance Runaround. He remembers hearing Fragile back when Gentle Giant were recording Acquiring the Taste over at Ad Vision Studios. And yes, we're recording Fragile at the same studio at almost the same time. And we've had Derek on the show before. He was on Yesshift last year, and we did a Drum Talk TV Bruins Q&A as well. We did one with him recently to talk about playing the full of a complete live experience. But he also it was just announced this week that he's putting out a book titled Giant Steps. It's a memoir of his coming out in October 7th. And it'll chronicle his early career and being in Gentle Giant and then becoming a record executive. And I'm very curious to check out this book. We'll try to do a review of it and whether it'll touch on any Yes related stuff. He does mention in this Louder Sound article that he introduced Billy Sherwood to Chris. So that would have been around the time that it was Yes West, and they didn't have John Anderson with him because he was with ABWH at the time. Let's see. We got Rick talking about Heart of the Sunrise in this article. He brings up 21st Century Schizoid Man, which he also talked about in that Rick Beato interview, if memory serves. Let's see. You got people from King's X, NMB. Or that would be Neil Morse from Neil Morse Band, I believe. Let's see, page 2. And I'm not naming all the songs because I don't want to spoil what all of the choices are. I want the article to still speak for itself, so I'm not giving too much away. Got Steven Stevens. I got people from No Man. You got Tom Brislin talking about Ritual, and he shares a nice little memory from the symphonic tour. He talks a bit about Chris coming over to the keyboard and how Ritual was a highlight. You got people from Masters of Reality. You got Jimmy Hahn. In this article, Jimmy Hahn, his credits are listed as Yes and Arc of Life. And granted, he was technically on the Union album, though he was not a member. So I thought that was a little bit strange. Like, why not put Circa and Arc of Life? But eh, it is what it is. But in any case, Jimmy Hahn talks about Sound Chaser and how fresh that was, and how jazzy it is, um, and how Chris maintains the same voice throughout that whole thing. That's an excellent track there. Jay Shellen talks about Hold Out Your Hand from Fish Out of Water, and it mentions Bill Bruford's part on that as well. It says, during rehearsals for a live conspiracy filming, I began charting Bill's drum part. When I finished each section, I'd play it during a break. The second day, Chris came over and smiled, said, looks like you've got your hands full. So, yeah, that's really cool. You also got You By My Side, talked about by Martin Adelman from The Sin. Lucky Seven, talked about by Mel Collins, King Crimson. So a lot of Fish Out Water representation here. Steve Nardelli from The Sin, talking about Going for the One. He says, it was at Chris's home studio when he first played it to me. I was visiting with my wife and baby son, Jago. So it's always held a special memory for me. I couldn't believe what I was listening to, a work of genius in every way. It goes on a bit more. Rona Stolt talks about Awaken. So that's the end of page 2. And then page 3, Jeff Downs talks about Onward. I think he says that it's probably Chris's best song, and he mentions how they used that to illuminate his bass guitar in the show after his passing. Let's see. We got people from Solstice, Anchoress, Andy Hodge from DBA, talking about Tempest Fugit. Okay, Michael Whiteman from I'm the Manic Whale talks about Run with the Fox. Let's see, we have someone from Macedon, someone from Kairos and Circuline. Kairos is a great band. If it is the band I remember seeing in a Stage It stream. Got someone from Haken. Billy talks about The More We Live, Let Go, of course, because that was the first released Yes song that he had a part in. So yeah, this is very much worth the read, this article. And again, the link is in the post. Let's see. I see a comment from Reggie Arpeggio over on Facebook, saying, when I saw the news on Facebook, all I kept saying was, oh no, oh no. Very strange mental connection I had while flying back from San Francisco the day before I got the news. I was wondering about the possibility of staging virtual concerts in various cities with local musicians backing rock stars who have lost other band members. The stars would be playing live in their home city, and the local bands would be playing along live in different cities simultaneously. I kept thinking of Chris. I'm trying to wrap this idea around my head. Let's see, virtual concerts. Okay, so yeah, that's an interesting idea there. But yeah, again, it was such a shock when the news came out. And as for the Prague magazine issue, Prague issue 160, which features Chris Squire on the cover and has this, I presume it has this David West article I'm talking about, as well as Stephen Lamb's. I do not have the physical copy in my hand yet, but I should be getting it by the end of the day. So, one for me, one for Dad. So I don't have any thoughts on the physical copy just yet, but once I get it, I'll post a photo on the Facebook page, the Yesshift Facebook page. So yeah, go ahead and read this article over on Louder Sound I just mentioned. And I see Mark Wallace is tuning in from Miami, Florida. Or is it Wallace or Wallows? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. But yeah, Chris Squire departed from this earth 10 years ago today, June 27th. But he still lives on through the music, never forgotten. Now, this other bit of news, the article that came out today being news, that was a bit of news, and just taking time to remember Chris and whatnot. But there was breaking news today of a remastered CD coming out September 25th for Alan White's solo album from 1976, Ramshackled. We'll go ahead and show the cover image. So this is listed over at Cherry Red Records. And I'll go ahead and read the details. And Dad and I talked about this a couple years ago, I think, this album. Possibly the most different from the Yes solo albums of that time, that 75, 76 period. And kind of strange that, Alan and Chris, being as tight as they were, didn't have Alan on Fish Out of Water and didn't have Chris on Ramshackled, even though each of those features Yes people. Got Bill and Patrick on Fish Out of Water, got Steve and John on Ramshackled. So I kind of wonder if maybe they were challenging themselves to go beyond their comfort zone in a way. But yeah, I'm just pulling up the listing so that I can read it off of my phone. So Alan White, Ramshackled, remastered and expanded CD edition. Okay, here's a description. Originally released in March 1976, when members of Yes all concentrated on solo projects, Ramshackled featured some of the finest session musicians in Britain, including keyboard player Kenny Craddock, guitarist Pete Kirtley, and bassist Colin Gibson, both of whom had played with Alan in the short-lived bands Happy Magazine and Griffin in the late 1960s. The album also featured guest appearances from John Anderson and Steve Howe on the track Spring Song of Innocence. This edition of Ramshackled has been newly remastered from the original master tapes and features the single versions of Ooh Baby Goin' to Pieces and One Way Rag as 2 bonus tracks, issued on CD for the first time. The release also features an illustrated booklet and new essay making this the definitive edition of this wonderful album. And so, yeah, looking at the track listing, you've got Ooh Baby Goin' to Pieces, One Way Rag, Avacac, Spring Song of Innocence, Giddy, Silly Woman, Marching into a Bottle, Everybody, Darkness Parts 1 through 3, and then the bonus tracks, Ooh Baby Goin' to Pieces single version, One Way Rag single version. So actually September 26th, it looks like that's the date it's coming out. I think I said 25th earlier. But yeah, this is on the Spirit of Unicorn label. Yeah, I'm very curious about this. So yeah, I might have to get this actually. So go to Cherry Red Records, you can pre-order it. I do wonder though, if anyone considered maybe putting the video promos of the Ramshackled songs, the ones that were on, I believe they might have been on old Grey Whistle Test. I think it would have been nice for there to have been a DVD containing those promos, maybe clean up the footage a bit. So I don't see anything like that listed on here, but yeah, I do wonder if that was considered. But in any case, I really appreciate that Ramshackled it is getting, back in the spotlight again somehow. I know it feels like the most, maybe outside of the comfort zone for Yes fans and Prog fans as far as the music goes, but from what I recall, Dad and I like really enjoyed some of the different stuff that was on there, and maybe there were a couple things that sounded more Yes than I remember. I'll have to give it a listen again. And I see Reggie chiming in again, saying uh, Chris is a fantastic bass player. Totally. Oh, sorry. Colin is a fantastic bass player. Totally unlike Chris in tone and note choice. I didn't like it at first, but now I love his playing. Okay, so Colin's playing really grew on you. Nice. All right, so that's all the news for now. Just want to come on here for a little bit in between things and talk about all of that. So everyone, be safe, be kind to one another, and we'll be back sometime in July. I don't anticipate any other broadcasts in the remaining couple days of June unless something really huge and major happens, but we'll see. But otherwise, yeah, we'll be back in July, and we'll also have our 4th anniversary show on the 11th, so keep an eye out for that. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon.